You know, in any project, there's a huge difference between just getting something done and getting it done right. Today, we're going to dive deep into project quality and how the whole idea has shifted from, a final check at the end of the line to a philosophy that's literally built into every single step.
So let's just start with this question. What's the real difference between a project that just works, it meets the requirements, and one that genuinely wows everybody? Well, that difference, that magic ingredient, is quality. And figuring out how to achieve it, that's what separates the good from the truly great. Okay, first things first, we've got to get one thing straight. People mix up quality and scope all the time, but they are not the same thing. At all. Scope is the what. It's the list of features, the boundaries of the project. But quality, that's all about how well you're going to do it. It's the standard, the level of excellence you're aiming for.
Now, when it comes to hitting that standard of excellence, there are really two completely different ways to think about it. Imagine you're cooking a big pot of soup. The old school, traditional way is like waiting until it's completely finished to taste it and see if it needs salt. But the modern, agile way, that's like tasting and seasoning it as you go, making small adjustments the whole time to make sure the end result is absolutely perfect.
So the traditional approach sees quality as this final gate, this big inspection, usually handled by a totally separate QA team. The problem? You find all the mistakes at the very end, which is the most expensive and stressful time to find them. The Agile world, it completely flips this on its head. Quality isn't some final step, it's everyone's job, every single day. The focus is on preventing defects from ever happening in the first place, not just finding them later. So, how does this actually look in practice? How do these two mindsets really change things on the ground? Well, we can break it down by looking at the three core processes of quality management: how you plan it, how you manage it, and how you control it. Let's see how different they are.
Let's kick things off with planning. In a traditional project, you'd probably create this huge, formal quality management plan, a giant document that tries to predict everything up front. In Agile, it's totally different. The team works together on what's called a definition of done. It's basically a simple, living checklist that everyone agrees on, and it defines exactly what it means for any piece of work to be truly complete. It's a shared understanding of quality.
And check out what this does to the money side of things. In traditional projects, about half the money spent on quality goes to failure costs. That's fixing bugs, rework, dealing with unhappy customers. It's all reactive. Agile inverts this completely. It spends big, maybe 70% of its quality budget on prevention, things like test automation. So you invest up front to prevent the problems, which saves you a fortune in cleanup costs down the road. Okay, next up is managing quality, or what we call quality assurance. The old way relies on things like formal audits or deep dive analysis after a problem has already happened. The Agile way, it's all about continuous, daily collaboration. You see things like pair programming, where two developers code together to catch mistakes in real time, or team retrospectives, where everyone talks about how to improve the process. It's proactive, not reactive. And here's the proof in the pudding. We can measure this with something called defect removal efficiency. Basically, how good are you at catching bugs before your customers do? Traditional methods, they catch about 60% of them. Not bad. But an agile team using modern practices like continuous integration, where code is automatically tested with every single change, they can catch a staggering 90% of defects. That's a huge difference.
And finally, we have controlling quality. This is where you actually check the work itself. Traditionally, this is that big final inspection, a pass-or-fail moment at the very end. But in Agile, it's all about continuous validation. Automated tests are running constantly in the background, and you have things like sprint reviews where real stakeholders get their hands on the product every couple of weeks to give immediate feedback. It's a constant feedback loop.
You know, that idea of continuous validation we just talked about is really only possible because of one crucial thing: automation. This is where the whole philosophy of building quality in stops being a nice idea and becomes a real, practical thing you can do every day. It's the engine that powers the entire Agile quality machine. But you can't just go and automate everything. That would be a huge waste of time. It's an incredibly powerful tool, but you have to be smart about it. You've got to know where to use it to get the biggest bang for your buck. So, what are the best things to automate? You really want to automate the boring, repetitive, high-volume stuff. Regression testing is the classic example, running tests to make sure a new feature didn't accidentally break an old one. It's a perfect job for a machine.
Same with stable features, like a login page, or tests you have to run on 10 different web browsers. Automating this stuff frees up humans to do the smart work, and it kills human error.
Okay, so if that's what we should automate, what's on the other side of that coin? Where do we absolutely need that human touch? You don't automate things that need human creativity, intuition, or subjective feedback. Usability testing is a perfect example. You need a real person to click around and tell you if an app feels intuitive. And exploratory testing, where a skilled tester just tries to break the system in creative ways, a machine just can't do that. And trying to automate a feature that's changing every 5 minutes, trust me, that's just a recipe for frustration.
All right, so if building quality in is the philosophy and automation is the engine, there's one practice that takes this mindset to its absolute logical conclusion, and that is test-driven development, or TDD. This isn't just another technique, it's a discipline. It fundamentally rewires how developers think about and write their code. So here's how TDD works. You don't write your code and then write a test for it. You do it the other way around. You start by writing a small, automated test for a tiny piece of functionality that doesn't even exist yet. Of course, when you run it, it fails. And only then do you write the absolute minimum amount of code required to make that test pass. I know it sounds totally backwards, but it forces you to be crystal clear about what you're building before you build it.
And this all happens in a very simple, very disciplined little loop. Red, green, refactor. First, you write a test and watch it fail. That's your red light. Then, you write just enough code to make that test pass. That's the green light. And finally, because you have the safety net of a passing test, you can clean up your code, make it better without fear of breaking it. That's refactor. And then you just repeat the cycle over and over again for every tiny new feature.
Now, to make this work, you have to follow 3 simple rules. They're like the laws of TDD. Rule number 1, and this is the big one, you are not allowed to write any production code unless it is to make a failing test pass. This is a powerful rule. It means every single line of code you write has a reason to exist, a specific testable requirement it's fulfilling.
Rule number 2 keeps you focused. You can't write any more of a test than is sufficient to fail. This stops you from writing some giant, complex test for a whole feature. Nope, you write one tiny piece of the test, one assertion, watch it fail, and then you stop. This forces you to take tiny, manageable, deliberate steps. And the third rule, it's all about simplicity. You are not allowed to write any more production code than is absolutely necessary to pass that one failing test. This fights the natural urge for developers to over-engineer things. It forces you to write the simplest possible solution every single time, which keeps your code clean and easy to understand.
So, let's zoom out and bring this all together. What's the big takeaway here? It's that we're talking about a complete transformation in how we even think about quality. It's just not a separate phase of a project anymore. It's not one team's job to find mistakes at the end.
I think this quote just nails it. The modern quality mindset sees quality not as a line item on a budget for fixing things, but as a genuine value driver. When you build quality in from the very start, you actually build better products, you build them faster, you do it with more confidence, and you deliver way more value to your customers in the end.
So, I'll leave you with this last thought. Now that you've seen this powerful shift from inspection to prevention, what's just one small thing you can do on your next project? It could be anything. Maybe writing your very first automated test, or just getting your team together to agree on a definition of done. The question is, how are you going to start building quality in right from the very beginning?